Good morning, everybody. Can I make a confession? I feel a little strange on this stage when there's so few of you. My inclination would be to come out there and just sit in a ring of chairs and have a great conversation about execution. But they're making a video, so they're asking me to stay up here. I hope you don't mind being this far away. I can hardly see you either. This is a little bit like being Bon Jovi just for a second, which most of us have always wanted to be, at least for a second, right? So, hey, thank you for coming to this session. I know there's a lot of sessions to choose from. I hope 25 minutes from now you feel like you made a good choice. There's no room here where you wouldn't have made a good choice, but I hope you feel good about the time you spent here. My name's Jim Huling. I'm the managing consultant for Franklin Covey, a company I'm very proud to represent. You might know of Franklin Covey, Dr. Stephen Covey, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, a book we believe changed the world and still does today. That's the foundation of our company. I'm the co-author of the newest bestseller from Franklin Covey called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. 2012 was a publication date, became the #1 best-selling book in America in 2012, and now translated into 12 languages and very popular all around the world, bestseller in a number of other countries since that day. So it's a great privilege to share with you all that we think we've learned about the subject of execution. I do need to ask you a very fast question, though. I have 25 minutes to give you 12 years of research and in-depth understanding. Are you okay with fast? Yes, good. And I'm a Southern guy, so I can only speak so fast anyway. Don't be concerned. But I've really got to move through this material in order to give you all of it in a nice, complete package before you leave today. So I'm ready to begin if you are. Everybody good to go? Good. It just makes me feel better to have a conversation rather than being a talking head. So let's do it. Now, to get us started, we want this clicker. When I click it, we want the slide to advance. There we go. A technological revolution has now happened, ladies and gentlemen. The ancient Greeks told the story of a man named Sisyphus. Anybody ever heard of Sisyphus? Yeah. So when I say that, first of all, can you have a little empathy? He would not have survived my middle school with a name like Sisyphus. It wouldn't have happened, right? So he must have had a hard life right from the beginning. But in the short version of this story, Sisyphus did something really bad. There's no need to tell it to you today. It's a long story. Just take my word for it. It was something bad enough that the Greek gods sentenced him to a terrible punishment. His punishment was that every single day of his life, he was condemned to push a giant rock all the way up a hill. And just at the end of every day, when he would get that rock to the very crest of the hill, what do you think happened to the rock? It would roll all the way back down the hill, and he had to start all over again. Now, it's a little bit of a sad story, isn't it? And 2,000 years later, here we are. We call this management today. There's a lot of truth in that, isn't it? I'm 41 years in leadership this year, including 11 years being CEO of a company named 4 times one of the 25 best places to work in America. And I just look back across all those years and think how often my story and the story of Sisyphus have great parallels. Have you ever been part of this where you would drive something, you would have a program or an initiative or a theme for the year, and you'd get everybody excited and you'd feel like change was really starting to happen? And then you'd take a week of vacation. And when you came back, you would say, well, why aren't we doing the thing we were doing before? And people would look at you very innocently and say, what was that thing? So that's how management and leadership today is very much like this story of Sisyphus. Now, I don't want to start with a downer, but I do want to start with something clear. Everybody in every leadership position, whether you lead by authority or whether you lead by example, has an obligation to produce results. Is that fair in your judgment? Isn't it true? Are there any jobs at your place that don't involve producing results? Could I interview with you and say, sir, I'm really good communicator, I'm wonderful with people, but the whole results thing, it's just not me. Am I likely to get a job at your place? Probably not, right? In fact, you're going to try to figure out how I even got an interview. But every one of us today, whether we lead by example or we lead by position, understands the weight of the responsibility to produce results. Now, I'm going to simplify this down so far that I can do it in 25 minutes, and I think you might think it's an oversimplification, but simplicity is one of the greatest friends of execution. So I hope this simple way of looking at the world will be something that will add value. Because in producing the results, most of us spend most of our time in one of these 2 places. We're either developing a strategy or we're trying to get people to execute the strategy. I know this is the simplest version of the world that you've ever heard in your life, but isn't this basically true? If you're a leader, aren't you spending most of your time thinking about what we need to be doing and also trying to get everybody on the team to actually do it? Is that fair? So think about this subject for a minute. Making a strategy or getting a team of people to execute the strategy. In your experience, which is harder? Yes, thank goodness you said execution. We're going to have a long 22 and a half minutes if you'd said planning, right? Because making a plan, making a strategy is critical. It's valuable to a company. Without a strategy, we don't know where we're going. But most of us who've been in any kind of leadership role, no matter whether it's in our community or our businesses or our places of worship, whatever we're trying to do, getting people to do the thing is what's hard. The execution piece is where most of us struggle. And so that's the reason several years ago we set out at Franklin Covey to try to decode why is that so hard? Why is execution as difficult as it often seems to be? Now, I have really good news and I have really bad news for all of you. Here's a little bit of the bad news. The short version of why execution is so hard is something you're really familiar with. It's your day job. Do you know what I'm talking about? The 173 things you have to get done today before you can go home tonight. Or even while you're here at this great conference. Aren't you doing it right now? Isn't your head spinning a little bit with all the things back at work that need to be happening? The person you hope showed up today, the team that you hope got a proposal out on time, the phone calls you wanted to have returned, the emails that needed to be responded to, all those things. That's your whirlwind. That's your day job. And it's our belief that that's the single biggest enemy of execution in every organization with whom we work. Now, what is it about this whirlwind? Well, the whirlwind competes for time and talent and energy with the goals that you think will take you to the next level. So here's a simple question. When the urgent whirlwind fights with the important goals, who usually wins? Urgent or important? That's right? And if you don't mind me saying, in business and in life, this turns out to be a great truth. Urgency will beat importance every time unless we have discipline. Now, I want to go back to a statement I made just a minute ago. I have good news and bad news about execution. Do you have a preference? Would you like to have the good news or the bad news first? Yes, and every leadership team everywhere in the world says the same thing. Everybody says, if there's bad news, give it to me now. If there's good news, it can wait a little bit, right? And I'm the same way. I want to hear what it is. So here's the bad news about execution. The bad news about execution is that there are rules. There are rules for executing. Now, that may not sound bad, but think of it this way. The rules of execution are like gravity. I can walk around this beautiful hotel all day long and say, I don't believe in gravity, I don't believe in gravity, I don't believe in gravity. But if I walk off the roof of this tower somewhere on the way down, I will probably start to believe in gravity. But here's the real message. Gravity doesn't care. Gravity is still the rule, whether I believe it or not. So I'd like to present these rules to you today in that spirit. We believe they are the way that things work when human beings are doing them together, even if for the moment you want to hold in reserve your own opinion about whether it's true or not. Now, I promised you some good news. Can I give you the good news as well? The good news about execution is that there are rules. There are rules that if we apply them, they work. They work when the economy's good or when the economy's bad or when the competitors have gotten really smart or when our market share is decreased because some new technological innovation has temporarily put us in second place. These 4 rules work in good times and bad, and they give us this rare ability to execute no matter what's happening in that whirlwind. Now, I haven't earned this from you yet. You don't have to believe me at all, but if that was true, would you be a little bit glad you walked into this room instead of the one next door? If I could really show you 4 things that would let you take your team to another level if you did them, despite your external circumstances, I hope that's a message of really good news. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And if you're ready, in this fast version, we're going to hit discipline 1. Now, discipline 1 is the discipline of focus. Discipline 1 is about narrowing our focus to the critical goals that matter most. I don't know about you, but most leaders think they focus, And most leaders, including me for a lot of years, have never done this on their life. I might have 10 goals or 20 goals or 30 goals. It doesn't matter how many goals I have. What matters is the clarity of which few goals are more important, more significant than all the other ones. It's that distinction that's what Discipline 1 is really talking about. Now, if you've ever led a team or an organization, you likely didn't implement Discipline 1, even if you think you're really focused. And neither did I. And all the years I've been a leader of teams and people, the launch of a new year with all the new goals, it would often look something like this. Technological innovation there. Yeah, I don't know if this is your world, but this is mine, you know. In an organization I was leading, we'd have a big kickoff meeting, and I would say, here's all the goals for the new year. Look how focused we are. I might even say there's big goals and little goals and red goals and yellow goals, just to be sure we've got everything to keep you engaged. But the reality of that launch is the absence of focus. In other words, having that many goals and not distinguishing which ones are the most critical is the same as saying everything is priority one. Does that make sense? Everything is priority one. When we don't distinguish, that's what we say. And I don't know if you've been in a leadership role long enough to get this, but I can really promise you it's true. If everything is priority one, what's really priority one? Nothing at all, right? So what we don't want is the truth of our leadership to be that we focused on a lot of things, but nothing got our best performance. Nothing got our greatest creativity, our deepest passion, our most fierce engagement. Nothing did it because we were trying to give it to everything. And that's why Discipline 1 is a powerful discipline, the discipline of focus. Now, for those of you that are left brain and like statistics and math, here's our experience working at Franklin Covey with teams all around the world. The teams that will narrow their focus down have a very high probability of hitting the goals that they set. The teams that will narrow their focus just a little bit have a very different experience. Do you notice what happens to those teams? Those teams actually go backwards. And of course, you know the answer of what happens to these teams. Now, of all the things I want to try to show you in 25 minutes, this slide might very well be the most important thing of all. Because if you look at that middle box, do you see what happened to the team? The leader gives the team more goals in order to increase the team's performance. And the reality is, the more things we ask people to focus on, the less results they actually achieve. So in our version of Discipline 1, we narrow our focus by looking at all the goals we have and simply choosing the one or perhaps two goals that are the most critical for us for this year. And in doing that, we make this decision. We sustain excellence on everything else, but the one or two that we choose, our goal is to knock those out of the park. And as soon as we do it, we give it a finish line in the form of X to Y by when. Now that's Discipline 1 in the fastest version I can possibly give it to you. I would love to spend the whole 25 minutes on Discipline 1, and if I do, you'll leave here unsatisfied because you'll only have one piece of the puzzle. So I'm going to rush on to say Discipline 2 is the discipline of leverage. Now remember leverage, remember the principle, Archimedes, give me a lever long enough and I can move the world. That idea, something I couldn't do on my own, if I can find my leverage, I can make it move. That's the idea of Discipline 2. Discipline 2 is about acting on the lead measures. Those actions or behaviors that simply have the greatest impact on the goal. So I'll tell you a very fast story to illustrate this principle. One of the largest organizations we work with is the largest hotel company in the entire world. And in their application of the 4 disciplines, one of the goals they chose to focus on was the experience of the guests. That's probably no surprise to anybody in this room. If you're in a hotel business like this beautiful place, you know that the experience of the guests drives just about everything. But the question is, what drives the score of the guest? What few behaviors would actually make that score move the most? Now, again, telling the story so fast, I hope it still comes across well. Wouldn't you all agree that cleanliness of your room is one of the things that matters most in your evaluation of your hotel stay? Is that fair? Right? Cleanliness certainly matters. Certainly the absence of it matters a lot. But when you're thinking about cleanliness, can you think about what part of the room matters most? Just let your mind work this problem for a minute. It's not the whole room. There's some parts of the room that simply matter more than others. Anybody have a suggestion? The bed is a great guess. Not quite the answer. Give me another one. The bathroom, right? So the bathroom matters more than the bedroom. Are we in agreement? We're still not there. What part of the bathroom matters most? The toilet is a great guess. Thanks for saying it in public. It's not the right one. Well, give me another one. The shower, great guess. You were just there this morning, right? It's not the one we're looking for. The sink, wonderful guess. Yeah, but when you were in that bathroom, what did you spend most of your time looking at? The mirror, right? So catch this idea just for a second. It's a beautiful illustration of discipline too. A small spot on the mirror matters more than a medium spot on the carpet. It's the simple reality. Now, if you're in the hotel business, you don't want either one. But if you were running the hotel, would this be an important piece of data? The cleaner the mirror, the higher the score. Would that be an important thing to know? Of course it would, right? And in the organization I'm talking about today, they built a process. Once they learned this, every mirror in this hotel chain is cleaned 3 times every day with 3 separate products. And as soon as the housekeeper finishes the 3rd cleaning, she or he texts the supervisor. The supervisor comes in, gives the mirror a score. In the back room, there's a scoreboard that tracks mirror cleanliness. Whoever has the cleanest mirrors gets a card for Starbucks at the end of the day. Are you catching what I'm describing? In other words, if you want to move a score, you have 2 choices. You can work harder, and most of us feel we don't have a lot of capacity to work harder, or we can work smarter by finding our leverage, the few actions or behaviors that actually move the goal. That's an example of discipline 2. So now, what you've got are 2 parts of the puzzle. A wildly important goal, that's our name for the one you select that's the most critical, and you've got 1 or 2 lead measures that are the drivers of that goal. In a very real sense, you know what you're supposed to do, and you have a plan for how you're supposed to do it. The only problem with this picture so far is that we haven't done anything to make people want to do it. You see, we have focus and we have leverage, but we don't have engagement yet. And that's why we need discipline 3. Discipline 3 is the discipline of engagement. And everything about discipline 3 is based on this one idea. Would you mind just telling me, is this true or false in your experience? People play differently when they're keeping score. True or false? It's true, right? Here is perhaps the greatest learning we've had in the last 10 years. People will play differently when we're keeping score, but they will play really differently when the score is theirs. Now again, precious few minutes to give you such an important idea. If you ever find a time machine, would you go back 25 years and find me somewhere in Atlanta, Georgia, and teach me this principle? It would have changed my leadership life. Because most of the time, most of the scoreboards we have in our companies are built for and loved by the leaders. Isn't that true? Do you have spreadsheets at your place? Yes or no? Yes, you sound so excited about them. Do you have spreadsheets with tabs? Whoa, awesome. Are they color-coded? Yeah. Any spreadsheets that are magically linked to other spreadsheets? It's like the coolest thing in the world, right? And have you ever once had your team come to you at lunchtime and say, hey, boss, it's our lunch break, but could we just see those spreadsheets again? Please, can we just look at them? We won't touch them. We just like to look at them, right? No team in the history of mankind has ever asked to see a spreadsheet. So why is it that we as leaders think our teams are going to be so excited about scoreboards that are designed for us, not them? So Discipline 3 becomes this radical idea. In Discipline 3, we design a scoreboard for the players, not for the leaders. And that scoreboard has 4 critical characteristics. It's simple. It's placed in a location where it's highly visible. It has the right lead and lag measures on it, and it tells us in 5 seconds or less if we're winning or losing. Does that make sense? Very few of your spreadsheets, or mine, if any, would meet those 4 criteria. In fact, when we're teaching people how to build a scoreboard, we're letting the team build their own board. And we give the team a very simple set of guidelines. We simply say, put the goal on the top and the lead measures underneath it. And put the words on the left and the graphs on the right. Not hard, right? How often do you think the scoreboard the team builds looks anything like that example? Not very often, ladies and gentlemen. In fact, here's what we get back. I know, I heard you. Oh, no, you're saying to yourself, oh, my gosh, how did I wander into this room? What is this he's teaching us? This looks like my children's arts and crafts project. Doesn't look like a serious scoreboard. And I'm with you in the sense that, this whole idea of wildly important goals, WIGs, I think they took that a little too far, don't you? Yeah. But if you're looking at this board and thinking that's not a serious team of people, may I share with you, this happens to be the cardiac intensive care unit in the number 2 ranked hospital in America at the time it was built. I promise you, these are serious people who are serious about their work, but they have a scoreboard that belongs to them. Now again, in just a couple of minutes, I don't know if I can pass all of this over to you, but I'm hoping I can get this idea across. When we let a team build its own scoreboard, instead of doing a corporate board for them like we would all design, when we let them have their own board, we allow people to start to feel like it's their game. And when they feel like it's their game, the data on that board becomes their score. And in the absence of Discipline 3, most people feel that they are an important player in a game that belongs to the leader. But when we implement Discipline 3 and get this level of engagement, people will say, that's our board, that's our score. Now, sometimes these boards have incredible creativity, and sometimes there's welding involved or electrical wiring so that when we're winning, we throw a switch and the green light bulb comes on. And some people have incredible artistic ability, and Spider-Man literally leaps off the wall. And I'm just going to show you one more, but I want you to be emotionally and psychologically prepared for it. Just look at what the accountants will do. I know. I guess if you're an accountant, this is wild and crazy. I don't know. But here's what I do know. When we let teams build their own scoreboards, the game belongs to them, not to us. And when the game belongs to them, they will play in an entirely different way. All right, Discipline 1 was focus. Discipline 2 was leverage. Discipline 3 was engagement. And Discipline 4, the most important discipline of all, is the discipline of accountability. Now, only a couple of minutes left to get this one across, but let me say quickly, it's the most important discipline. In fact, in a very real sense, Discipline 1, 2, and 3 design a game, but Discipline 4 is the game. Discipline 4 is the playing of the game. And what Discipline 4 means is that the entire team gathers once every week for a 15-minute meeting. And in that meeting, we do something that is revolutionary. We make ourselves accountable to each other. You see, everybody in every position, in every company you represent today, is accountable to their leader. That's what we're used to. But what takes us to the next level is when we add to that accountability a sense of being accountable to each other. And that's what happens in a Discipline 4 meeting. So just for a second, imagine your team in a Discipline 4 meeting, and imagine one by one, we go around the table or around the huddle, and everybody answers this question. What are the 1 or 2 most important things I can do this week to move our scoreboard? And whatever those things are, I raise my hand and I say them out loud. I say them to all of you. This is my commitment to the week. Over and above my regular job, here's what I will do to help us win. And when it's your turn, you say what you will do. And when it's your turn, you say what you will do. And one by one, we make commitments to each other. Now, those commitments have to drive the scoreboard, so we have to drive them into our week. But when we come back together 7 days later, the very first thing we say is whether we kept our commitment to each other or we didn't. We say out loud, last week I committed to train the 2 new people on my team and I did it. Or perhaps we say, I didn't. And when we say I didn't, and we look into the faces of the people we work with, most of us feel something in that moment. A feeling that makes us say to ourselves, I will not be in this position next week. And when that kind of accountability begins to characterize your team, they go to another level. A level that says, no matter what we say we will do, we know we will do it. So what have you learned in 23 and a half minutes? We have 21 seconds left. Discipline 1 is about focus, narrowing our focus to 1 or 2 big goals. Discipline 2 is about finding our leverage in the actions or behaviors that matter most. When we begin to execute those lead measures, they will move that lag measure. And we sustain that process by making weekly commitments to each other, small bites with absolute follow-through, all represented in a fun and engaging scoreboard. And that, my friends, is the 4 disciplines of execution. I hope you've enjoyed hearing about them today. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.